Hi everyone, it's amazing to be back for year 2, and hopefully I can do a good job of trying to bring together some of the themes from throughout today and bringing them to our expert panel, and we'll have a hopefully quite a lively and interesting discussion about the future of AI. We'll definitely keep some time for questions from the audience at the end, so if things crop up, make a note, and we'll make sure there's time to get mics out to everyone. To start with, though, I just want to invite the panel to introduce yourself, just kind of quick fire, 1 minute. What's your elevator pitch?
Hi, just testing again. My name is Elena Sinel. I'm the founder of Teens in AI. We founded back in 2018, launched at the United Nations AI for Good Global Summit, and we're on a mission to empower young people all over the world into AI for impact and developing them ethically as well, ethically and responsibly. I think that's the focus.
Great. Hi everyone, my name is Dama, pronounced as she, her. I'm one of the partners at Bethnal Green Ventures, and I've been at B2B, which is an early stage impact investing firm. And when I say early stage, I mean pre-product, pre-revenue. So if you're just thinking about your idea, come talk to me after. And we really are all about backing founders who have really novel ideas of wanting to use technology to drive positive outcomes for people and planet. My background in this has always been in social impact, so very different career from VC in my past lifetime. So if you want to know how to survive a grenade, I can tell you. You run and dive. That's all there really is to it. But you can tell it's very transferable skills in VC. But what really still excites us as BGV is still seeing the amount of problems that really need solving, and really seeing founders emerge who want to serve, who really want to tackle needs, not just wants. So yeah, excited to be here.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Yaokai Jiang, and I'm the founder of Momen. And Momen actually we tie into you quite a bit because we serve non-technical founders to build and scale their MVPs. So Momen is a full stack web app development platform, and we have integrated payment and AI agent builders. And as for me, I did my undergrad in the UK. Most of that accent is now gone since I moved. So yeah, that's about me.
Thank you all very much, and there's a lot that I am very excited to dig into today. But I'm going to start with hopefully quite an easy question. For each of you, what's been top of mind for you over the last few months, AI related or not AI, as you've been building your businesses?
Well, I'm happy to start again. So for us, obviously, if it doesn't further our mission, which is to get as many diverse populations or communities engaged into AI for impact, we don't use those technologies. So we kind of have been also watching the hype, kind of seeing what's happening in the stage of AI. We're only really using what increases our impact, what gives us the reach that we want. So a lot of the kids we work with come from African communities, underserved communities here in the UK and other parts of the world. So it's been interesting to see how this could integrate in some of our workflows. The challenge is always measuring impact, so we're social impact, and I think Bethnal Green will agree this is kind of where we're trying to see whether the programs we run are actually impactful, and if they're not, then kind of reanalyzing, reevaluating, and also the various touch points that we're using as we are running those programs. How can we analyze these insights better to showcase the impact that we're creating around the world? So far we have kids in 97 countries around the world learning about AI for impact. It's exciting to see that people are curious in cybersecurity, in robotics, in AI, in risk. So we have a very strong focus on ethics, but it's all about kind of trying to be also very upbeat. Do we still need to teach to code, or is this kind of all passé? So it's been a really interesting times to see how the stage, how the stage of AI is evolving.
Yeah. I think from a VC perspective, so venture as an asset class, or VC as an asset class, is terribly, terribly small. But the outsized influence venture capitalists can actually have in shaping the future of technology is massive. If we sort of look at the products and services that have emerged out of the last 20, 30 years and where they started, it started with early stage investments from VC firms all across the globe. and seeing sort of the direction of travel with AI and how intrinsic it's becoming to our daily lives. And I used a collective we. There might be a few people who, similar to me, refuse to use ChatGPT for any type of purposes, but we'll get to that in a bit. There is still sort of the acknowledgement and understanding that VCs have ultimately also a responsibility in actually making good investment decisions. And for someone like B2V, who is an impact investor as well, where we do look at profit as well as positive impacts and mitigating any potential unintended consequence of harmful technologies, there's an added sort of lens now for us to sort of think about, does this really need to be AI? If it's in the sort of health tech space, for example, and someone is coming up with an idea of building a very novel sort of technology to provide more inclusive services to people who have largely been underserved, the sort of first questions that we answer is like, where's your training set coming from? Who is actually doing the data work? Because there's so many socioeconomic considerations that come with the type of work that people are putting into their products as well. There have been loads and loads of VC-backed examples where facial recognition technology, so computer vision, which is the AI layer in there, has been used to target the really vulnerable populations in many, many repressive governments, for example. And there's a sort of consideration there to sort of really question yourself, is this the right type of direction for the businesses, and what sort of responsibility you have to take as an investor putting money into these businesses as well and helping them actually grow. So loads and loads of considerations at the moment for me personally are around sort of data centers. And we briefly touched upon this, but considering that there's an interesting stat that came out saying that 20% of Ireland's energy in 2023 in the grid system went to data centers. And that was before the sort of AI frenzy really took up. So there's a question now, how much energy is actually being diverted from communities who need energy, particularly during cold winters, for example, to data centers. So we can ask ChatGPT to plan our trip to Italy, you know, versus actually providing life-saving energy for people who suffer from fuel poverty. So there's loads of considerations at the moment around sort of the environmental drawbacks of AI that we're sort of taking into account.
Amazing, thank you. And we will come back to pick up on some of these issues.
Very quickly, I wanted to mention, it's very rare. I find a VC who actually mentions this, because most VCs are just concerned about the bottom line, you know, the profit and everything. So I just wanted to commend you for even thinking about it and asking those questions, because we speak about it to teenagers as well and insist on there to be a slide in their pitch deck, which is ethics and the risks, so that they could actually think about what the risks could be and how will they mitigate this and whether this is even needed to use AI and other technologies. Yeah, thank you.
Amazing. So, like I say, we will come back. I just would love to get Yaokai's.
Yes, I was just thinking, like, Dama is an impact investor, so it's not just any VC, right? So, well, I'm coming from a pure geek perspective, so the stuff that's on my mind is the agentic workflow paradigm, you know, mostly set? How much more performance is there to extract from the chain of thought reinforcement learning? So we now have reasoning models, these things with that the models that think before they spit out the answer, and there's a lot of opportunities there, and also in terms of multimodality, how the startup world is going to evolve around real-time communication with AI, and also, like, how do we mix sound, video, and all those things together within an agentic workflow, how that's going to work. So that's what I've been worrying about, and not really worrying, it's thinking about and reading papers on. So completely different angle, pure geek.
No, that's really helpful. And strangely, the two the two sides of things, I think, tie together quite nicely. So I think it's fair to say that today has been an absolute celebration of AI and visual development, but I also think it's very important that as people using AI and building it, that there is a consideration given to some of the negatives, the potential consequences. And obviously we've already touched on some of those with the environmental impact. Even with reasoning models and large language models, there are risks around hallucinations. So there's just been some interesting research released showing that even with the most advanced reasoning models, hallucinations haven't dropped, they're actually hallucinating more. So it looks like this is a potential problem that, again, as end users or as businesses building on top of AI models, we might need to navigate. As people building, enjoying, using AI, how do we balance those potential negative consequences or potential limitations with all the exciting possibilities that AI can bring? How do we build with AI responsibly?
Well, for me, I guess if it isn't built ethically, so with all of the ethical principles in mind, then I would, again, be very wary of that technology. So ChatGPT and various other large language models were built on stealing a lot of other data. So their training model on the data that's widely available, it's copyrighted, but they're still using this data to train their models. So every time another tool comes in front of us, I kind of look at the TNCs, also use research to understand how this was built, on top of what. Is it built using small language system or large language system? Is it Hugging Face? I think I asked you as well, and you said that, this is mostly built on ChatGPT. So for me, this would be like a bit of a no-no, introducing a technology like this to young people, only purely because I just think of Sam Altman as a Bond villain. We call him at home at the dinner table. So sorry. So I kind of look and investigate. I know not every person will be doing this, but I also consider every time we do decide, shall we ask ChatGPT? Well, shall we not ask ChatGPT, but think, on our feet or just use our brains. So it's kind of, for me, I like to navigate this very gingerly. I don't jump on every single tool that's out there, and I definitely don't advocate this to the young people that we are trying to impact. So, of course, AI is there to probably stay. I really wish I had the magic wand to actually wish it away and turn the tide, because I'm seeing a lot of things that I really wish I didn't see. So, facial recognition technologies, of course, are coming out. We've called moratorium on facial recognition technologies for all the right reasons, and all the wrong things that we're seeing. Of course, there are a lot of biases. We don't have enough women in tech. I think less than 22% of women are in data and AI roles. This is impacting the technologies that we're using. And of course, it's the typical group of white men in Silicon Valley developing those technologies for everyone to use. So I'm kind of not a massive advocate. I'm sort of techno-skeptic, if you want to put it this way. So I have to be, because obviously my responsibility lies with the kids as well. So when I see there is a lot of hype, I kind of pause and be very kind of selective as to what technologies I use and what we can use in our programs. We are kind of still stuck with teaching native Python. We use, Google Notebooks, Jupyter Notebooks, whatnot, Google Colab. We're not really using any specific large language model systems. We advocate for responsible use, so only use it if you absolutely need to. But it's interesting times. But of course, for me, it's important to also notice how addictive all of those technologies are, particularly when it comes to young people using them. I'm not sure what is being used in schools right now, because my daughter is 23, so I know she used probably some large language models to write her dissertation and stuff. Unfortunately, it just came out and everyone got excited, and she's like, "Oh, mommy, why should I write by myself when there is something that can help me?" And my son is going just into secondary school. It will be interesting to see, but everyone is using it. It's not possible to stop. But I'm hoping regulation will come into force. Of course, there is a EU AI Act, AI bill, and there was very interesting stuff happening in Parliament very recently on the copyrights. So it would be a dream to come true if some Bond villains ended up in prison, and we could make them accountable for all the stuff that we're seeing coming out, with people building stuff on it without realizing that the times of build things fast, break things fast are really gone. We need to look into the risks, and this is a really serious thing to consider.
Yeah, thank you. I think that's a very comprehensive answer, and interesting that you bring in education there. So that has been, to me, one of the recurring themes of today, is that like it or loathe it, AI is changing the face of the workforce. It's changing our roles. It's changing the jobs we're likely to be doing in the future, and that our kids and future generations are going to be doing. As an employer, how do you manage that? What skills are you looking for when you're going out to recruit?
Curiosity. I think, like, AI for someone who's curious is a huge force multiplier. I was just thinking, for me, 5 years ago, if I had a problem that I had to solve, I had something that I couldn't understand, the unknown is a problem. I don't even know what to search. And that's the other thing. I think if someone's curious, you're going to treat AI as a muse, not as an oracle. And I think that's critical in this age, because even if you had someone who's like your mentor, right? And I don't think you should treat AI as your mentor, but even if you had a mentor, you should not take his words for it. You have to keep yourself as an individual, so that your thoughts makes you an individual. And I've seen my employees, some of them, that make fantastic use of AI. So they would use AI to critique them, and then they don't buy into that, and they would like, okay, is this actually correct? They would use AI for like, oh, I'm tackling this problem, can you suggest some directions? And you pair that with Google, you pair that with talking to a different person. So it really amplifies the benefits of curiosity. And that's what I look for the most nowadays.
Amazing. And does that tie in with what you're teaching the young people you work with, Elena?
Well, we teach young people to obviously be responsible, but also purposeful in the way they use technology. We want them to focus on solving big problems, but real problems, and not problems like how can I plan a trip to Italy? That's not a big problem to solve, but something related to how can we predict breast cancer? How can we, I know one of the latest products that we've had that won a competition was on menopause in East Asian countries, because in East Asian countries this is still a taboo subject, and the girls have spoken to their parents, understood what the problems, the needs were of their parents of age 45 plus, and that was something that was highlighted in a lot of conversations. So the girls did proper research, and instead of tackling period poverty, which was the challenge we offered, they said, well, Elena, period poverty is already tackled. We want to tackle menopause. I'm like, oh, that's interesting. How do you do that? Through technology, through AI. So I kind of like a very inquiring process. So we asked kids, if you're going to be solving problems, make sure there is a big pain. Don't solve anything that's not painful enough to solve, and make sure you focus on how we can leverage and technologies for something impactful, and don't do code for the sake of coding, but just really make it purposeful. So for me, that's kind of where.
Amazing, thank you. I think it's fair to say that Create With wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for the development of visual development tools, the release of very accessible AI models. I'd just like to think a little bit, or to ask you to talk a little bit about what you see the future of software development and technology looking like, and maybe Dama, I can come to you first on that.
I think the really interesting aspect at the moment of how AI is becoming so intrinsic in our daily lives is also the sort of behavior change that we see emerging from the sort of explorations of what is possible. There was a really brilliant conference a couple of weeks ago, which is called Softer London, which is basically this collective of amazing activists and technologists out of Copenhagen and Amsterdam who basically brought really great futurists and technologists into the room. And it was fascinating sort of hearing some of the and largely really young people, I will say, very fashionable young people, which was mind-blowing. But essentially, some of the explorations, some of the sort of testimonials and the explorations they've had was really around sort of how they use AI in their daily lives and what sort of behavior change is coming out of this as well. So it's been quite fascinating sort of hearing the sort of emergence of what is now possible. And I think that will definitely lead to really amazing products and services that embed AI as a sort of tool to really drive different types of outcomes as well. So even the sort of behavior change in using something like character AI, which can be troublesome. We've heard some case studies in there that led to quite dire consequences, but how a lot of young people, for example, are using character AI as basically their mental health therapist. And that's a significant sort of step change in behavior that hasn't occurred before with the way technologies were rolling out. And I think that's essentially also part of the puzzle for a lot of developers, for a lot of technologists now, for a lot of founders to actually see into what types of behaviors has changed that people can really tap into and can unlock something that could be truly transformational. And that's what I feel like is very exciting about the next wave of really great AI products.
I think there was some very interesting research that came out that showed that the main way that people use ChatGPT is for therapy. The main use, and I just for me this is fascinating that we are personifying a set of algorithms, but people are reporting that it is having quite transformational effects on them,
yeah.
And that's the tool that most of us have.
But I guess it also speaks to the structural problems, right? Because not loads of people can afford access to therapy, or there's loads and loads of wait times when you look at the NHS as well. So I think even if we were to determine where do we see other structural problems also emerge, access to education or access to actually building rapidly prototyping when you don't have the technical expertise. Those are all sort of areas where we see new and very fascinating things emerge, and I think that's again where we sort of hold the slogan of we're serving for needs, not wants, and that's where I feel we should focus a lot more investment into it as well, and not just your next sort of agentic AI that's going to increase passive consumers into more active ones. I mean, sorry, we don't need more consumer spend. We need better solutions to really challenging structural problems.
Amazing, thank you. I think tools that let people with no coding skills build is a perfect segue. For what's the future for you?
I'm gonna go from the angle of just building software. So the way I think about AI is really it's lowering of the marginal cost of performing cognitive tasks. And one of the cognitive tasks that we typically do is building software. Well, for us coder like me, not for everybody else. But with the lowered marginal costs, there's going to be so much more that can be built. Because previously, there's a hurdle that people have to jump through. Either you don't know how to code, and even if you find a visual development tool, you still need to learn it, and learning that is difficult. And typically when people find stuff difficult, that's because you lack feedback, you lack input, right? Imagine you riding a bicycle, you got lots of input, you got immediate feedback, people typically learn that pretty fast. But if you go for investment, the feedback is sparse and slow, and people are typically really bad at doing investments. So AI is going to probably help a lot of people getting through that hurdle. So a lot more people will be able to not just code, build software. And secondly, I think at the moment there's this weird dichotomy between the lovables and then the tools like Momen or Bubble or Glide. The reason is for lovables you get a 80% up all the way up with a ceiling that's really high. Like you can see, you have a very strong this like surprise me, and it's 80% there. But for people to actually pay money for stuff like the end product, if it's commercializable, it has to have a deterministic value. And deterministic value is really coming from the baseline. And stuff like Bubble or Momen can do like this baseline pretty well, but it takes much longer. So you have this change. I think the holy grail with this kind of development that eventually is going to be a merging of those two. So the people the lovables are going to build an editor, so you can give your developers or the vibe coders fine-grained control without going into code, because people a lot of vibe coders don't actually know how to code. And tools like
guilty.
Bubble, yeah. And tools like Bubble or Moment would go the other way by somehow leveraging the power of AI to also build a first draft, but leveraging on their existing editors so that people can have fine-grained control and actually shape the product they see fit.
Amazing. Thank you so much, everyone. If everyone can give our panel an absolute huge hand, that's been fantastic. Thank you.